Hi, I'm Ken Chow, founder of Growth Curve Marketing. I've been the head of marketing at various B2B tech firms for over 25 years, at everything from raw startups to billion-dollar publicly traded firms. And so I'm intimately familiar with that seemingly endless struggle to find that next pool of prospects or promotional idea or system that's going to finally push your lead gen over the top and deliver the numbers that you need. And as if that weren't enough, now we have to deal with AI, a technology which is both incredibly promising and still a bit flawed. Now, I was fortunate. Early in my career, I was taught by a rather famous marketing guru the single most effective thing any company can do to maximize those marketing investments and make them pay off in the form of optimized pipeline and win rate. And as it turns out, in the era of AI, it is now more important than ever. And I'm about to tell you what it is right now. Before I delve into AI, and I will, I first want to address a higher level truth. And that is that from a tactical marketing perspective, it's a level playing field. You and your competitors all have access to the same tools and tactics and technology and channels. So unless you plan on simply outspending them, and I don't recommend that as a primary strategy, what you say and how you say it matters more than anything else. You see, it's marketing's job to profess a profound belief about your product and why it is different and better, and to do so in a way that is specific and engaging and memorable. And here's the problem. I talk to a lot of firms on a regular basis, and the overwhelming consensus is that when it comes down to evaluating potential vendors, the vast majority of the messaging and content that they see and hear, or can at least remember, amounts to little more than, "We have one too." So even if you make the short list, you often end up in a checklist sale, where someone on the other side of the table is just comparing features and functionality among perceived equals. And no amount of marketing infrastructure is going to change that. However, if you did have the type of messaging and content that was truly specific and engaging and memorable, not only would you be able to attract more people into your pipeline to begin with, but by the time you engage directly with those prospects, you'd be able to have those conversations more on your own terms. That is, in the context of an advantage that they know and remember you claim to have, and that you're now getting a chance to prove to them. And that's what you want. At every turn, to be creating a little more daylight between yourself and your competitors so you can win those deals more often. Now, in order to do that, you need to have a formal messaging foundation, something that guides and informs everything you say to the market, and to the extent possible, ensures that you say it the same way every time, because you can't hope to establish brand or product identity without consistent, relentless repetition. So how does that work in the case of AI, where the content's actually being generated by software? Let's first talk about the case of a general AI. That's one that's trained on the internet at large. And let's establish three things up front. Number one, your results are only going to be as good as the prompts that you use, where you specify your subject, your focus, your format, your emphasis, your tone, your mood, and dozens of other things that you put into the AI, which then gets chopped up into tokens so that the AI can return whatever it is it's going to return. Number two, despite that level of influence and control, it's still very much an unpredictable process. So there's going to be a certain amount of trial and error involved, and we want to cut down on that as much as possible to save time and money. Third, we need to recognize that the same technology is in the hands of your competitors, and that's especially concerning when it comes down to descriptions of your industry and category, where many companies will be using very similar, if not identical, prompts, and as a result will start sounding very much the same, which we obviously want to avoid if we hope to differentiate ourselves. So how does a marketing foundation affect that? So first, in terms of the prompts that you use, you can be much more specific about exactly what it is you want the AI to produce, including specific phraseology and perspectives that are baked into that foundation. Number two, because you're able to do that, you're going to be able to optimize your prompts much more quickly to avoid a lot of the black box guesswork and save yourself the time and cost. Finally, when it comes down to competitors and the description of your industry and category, because you have that well described within your foundation, you can augment or edit whatever it is you get back so that you can ensure that you don't sound the same. Now, there's also the opportunity for many of you who may be frustrated with some of the limitations of general AI to move to a custom AI. That's one that's trained on a library of your choosing. And this type of messaging foundation, together with all of the content that is created using it, as well as third-party citations that support what it is you're trying to say, becomes the ideal library for that type of content-focused LLM. And the more you use it, the better it becomes. Now, I have created a program that delivers exactly that type of messaging foundation, one that ensures that all of your messaging and content is effective and consistent and works to support all of your systems, including AI, to optimize all of your lead gen and brand building efforts. And I call it the unfair advantage. Here's how the program works. We need to create a foundation that tells us what we say to whom about what and when, and how we ensure that it is specific and engaging and memorable. And that starts with part one of the unfair advantage, the message map. The message map helps to ensure that whatever it is we put into our messaging foundation is based on real market and customer feedback. And that begins with the data that comes to us by way of a series of surveys and interviews that I conduct with a fairly broad range of people, but which focuses on the three groups whose opinions matter the most. Customers, people who regularly talk with customers, and, whenever I can get it, people who have said no to you, because that's some of the most interesting feedback you'll ever get. Once I have that, I sit down with your key staff and we have what I guarantee will be a lively group discussion in which we together create a very specific set of words and phrases and sentences that thoroughly describe the market, the people, the problem, the solution, the advantages, and the benefits for every different type of person in your selling cycle. This also includes specific counter-positioning for your major competitors. And that takes us to the second part of the unfair advantage, the strategic content plan. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with the notion that people go through stages when they buy things. I have found it useful to focus on just three. The first is interest and awareness. That's where we first reach out to our target market and say to them, we understand you and your problem, and we solve it in this unique and better way. And that takes us to the second stage of content, which is understanding and belief, wherein we say to the same group of prospects, here is exactly how we do what we claim to do. And here's a bunch of people just like you who were successful doing it. We're validating our claim. And that brings us to the third and final stage of content, desire and action. And this is why department stores have mirrors, because what we're saying is, here is exactly what the product would look like and how it would function in your specific environment. Here's how we guarantee your success. Here's how we support you moving forward. And here's how you go about obtaining and implementing one of your own. We're literally trying to get the prospect to visualize themselves being successful with your product. Now, once I have a clear definition of those stages and I sit down with your marketing team, we take a look at our content inventory to determine what it is that we have, what it is that we need to edit or improve, and what it is we need to create from whole cloth in order to cover all of those stages. And we create detailed descriptions of each piece that we're going to create or improve, including how we're going to make each one specific and engaging and memorable. In fact, for several key pieces, we will probably create multiple versions so that we can test that. And once we've done that, that takes us to the third and final part of the unfair advantage, the tactical content plan. So once again, I sit down with the marketing team and we together create a calendar along with a set of associated milestones and deliverables that tells us exactly how and when we're going to create each piece, how it's going to be implemented, and that includes a testing regimen for the multiple versions I just talked about. And once you've done that, you have it. Your messaging foundation, something that's going to guide and inform everything you say to the market, ensure you say it the same way every time, and is going to make sure that all your messaging and content is specific and engaging and memorable, and that is going to allow you to attract more people into your pipeline, to close them at a higher rate, and to ensure that all of your marketing investments, including AI, are fully optimized for that goal. Now, if you have any questions at all about the program, I would invite you to get a hold of me. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Once again, this is Ken Chow at Growth Curve Marketing. I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I look forward to connecting soon.